Okay, so let's jump right in. I want you to imagine a scenario for a moment. Really try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, a pair of very, very busy shoes.
You're a nurse in a long-term care facility, and for your entire shift, 30 people, 30 human lives, are dependent entirely on you. The weight of that responsibility is, well, it's immense. You look up from what you're doing, and the whole hallway is just a sea of blinking lights. That means 10 different patients need you right now. Your one coworker is on break, another is stuck in a room with someone else, so it's just you. Oh, and you also have to give meds to all 30 patients in the next 2 hours.
As you're literally running from one room to the next, you keep hearing it. A patient has been yelling, calling out for help for almost an hour straight. But with 10 lights on, you have no way of knowing who's in the most danger. You just have to pick a room and go, hoping to God you're making the right call.
And when you finally, after all that time, get to that patient's room, this is what you find. I need you to know this isn't some made-up scene from a TV show. This is a real and tragically common result of a system that's been stretched way past its breaking point. That whole scenario, it's not just a freak accident. It's a symptom. It's the direct result of a huge systemic problem. Which brings us to our first section, understanding the life and death reality of these staffing ratios.
1 to 32. One nurse for 32 patients. And what's so shocking about this number is that it isn't from some abstract study. This comes directly from nurses who are working under these conditions right now. It is, by any definition, an impossible task.
So this is what we're talking about when we say dangerous staffing ratios. There is a straight line, a direct connection between how many nurses are on the floor and how safe the patients are. These aren't just numbers on some corporate spreadsheet. They translate to real-world falls, missed medications, and even worse. And it hurts everyone. The patients, obviously, but also the nurses who face burnout and moral injury.
You can think of it like this. That ratio is basically a safety net for every single patient. The more patients you add, the thinner that net gets stretched. And eventually, it just breaks.
So if the danger is so obvious, you have to ask yourself, how on earth did we get here? And that's what we're going to tackle next. Why is this happening?
The source material we're looking at today points to a really clear pattern. You see, as more and more healthcare facilities are run as for-profit businesses, the whole incentive structure changes. If there aren't any strict laws telling them exactly how many staff they need, well, companies can save a ton of money by just hiring fewer people. As long as the rule just says staffing has to be reasonable, well, what's reasonable starts to look a lot more like the company's bottom line than the patient's well-being. And this quote from Jill Farillo of the National Nurses Organizing Committee, man, it just cuts right through all the business talk. It poses a really basic moral question about our entire healthcare system.
Just take a second and think about that. It's a fear that so many of us have had, right? And what we're learning is that this fear, it's often rooted in this very real, very widespread problem of understaffing.
Now, it's really easy to feel kind of hopeless about all this, but there is a clear, proven path forward. And that brings us to our third section, the California solution.
Take a look at this data, because this is not a theory. California is the only state in the U.S. that has legally mandated specific nurse-to-patient ratios. And the results? They're absolutely stunning. Researchers estimated that if states like Pennsylvania and New Jersey just adopted the same ratios, they could have seen patient deaths drop by 11 and 14%. We're talking about thousands of lives.
So what actually happened when this law took effect? To put it simply, it worked. Hospitals had to hire more nurses to meet the legal standard. And nurses on the ground reported that their insane workloads actually got better. It proved that this wasn't just some nice idea. It was a practical, effective, and literally life-saving policy.
Okay, so if the data is so clear that this works and saves lives, why hasn't every state done it? Well, there's always pushback. So let's tackle that head-on in our fourth section, answering the objections.
This is always the first argument, the cost. Opponents will claim that forcing companies to hire more staff is just going to crush their bottom line. It's a powerful argument, but is it the whole picture?
The source material argues that this view is incredibly short-sighted. I mean, think about it. When you burn out your nurses, they quit. The cost of constantly having to hire and train new staff is enormous. Then you add in the cost of lawsuits from all those preventable accidents. Turns out, in the long run, investing in safe staffing could actually be the smarter financial move.
All right? The other big argument you'll hear is that, one, facilities will just hire less qualified people to meet the numbers, and two, that there just aren't enough nurses out there to fill all the jobs anyway.
But this gets the whole thing completely backwards. First, the research actually shows that quality either stays the same or even gets a little better. And the whole idea of a shortage? Dangerous staffing is one of the main reasons for nurse burnout. It's what drives good, experienced people out of the profession. If you make the job safer and more manageable, you don't create a shortage, you solve one by attracting and keeping the nurses we all desperately need.
So, we've laid out the problem, we've seen the cause, we have a proven solution, and we've poked holes in the arguments against it. This all brings us to our final and, frankly, most important section, demanding safer care.
This is a quote from Kelly McLaughlin, the author of the source material for this explainer, and her perspective here is so important. She's not just some academic studying this from afar. She has been the caregiver at the bedside, and she's been the worried family member in the waiting room. She has lived this issue from every single angle. And that brings us to the final question that we all have to ask ourselves. Because at some point in our lives, every single one of us will have to rely on the healthcare system, for ourselves or for somebody we love. So how do we make sure that system is safe for everyone?
The conclusion here is crystal clear. The most effective thing we can do to protect both patients and their caregivers is to legally require safe staffing ratios. This isn't just a political debate. It's a proven, necessary step. Because at the end of the day, the message couldn't be simpler. Safe staffing saves lives.